Jackson Holzer, host of the LockedOn Syracuse podcast. Jackson, how are you?
Good. How are you? Happy opening day, by the way.
Absolutely.
What was the first?
We're putting you on the spot here to start.
Do you know what the first R-rated movie you saw was?
I have no idea. I do not remember. I thought it might be Iron Man, and then I looked up Iron Man, and it was PG-13. But my dad, I remember telling me, thought it was inappropriate for me to see it at the time.
Yeah.
See, it's funny. We're so much older, and we both remember that off the top of our head.
You want to know something else? Yeah. PG-13 wasn't a thing until
true.
I was
true.
way past 13.
That's true, Jackson. When we were growing up, PG-13 wasn't a thing. It was either PG or R. There was no in between. All right, let's talk some hoops here. Let's talk transfer portal, and I guess let's start with the roster retention, right? And we know JJ and Donnie are coming back. The other guys have hit the portal in Chris Bell, Elijah Moore, Kyle Cuff, and Chance Westry. Anybody among that group, Jackson, that you wished would have stayed for next year of the four guys who left?
Not really. Not really, to be honest with you. I think they got rid of all the guys that they really kind of needed to get rid of. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's the reality. The priorities this offseason were J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman, because to build a tournament roster, you got to figure they need those two on the roster next season. The other four, I wish them nothing but the best. I hope they find new homes and they do really well, but it just was not working at Syracuse. And if you're not going to change the coach, then you're going to definitely have to change the cast of characters. So those guys got to be out the door. We'll see what happens with Peter Mastorovich.
Anybody that you would like to see come in from the transfer portal? Anybody you're eyeing?
Well, you guys were talking about Magoon Gwath. You guys don't know anything really much about him. And I can't say I've been watching a lot of San Diego State games, to be honest with you, but he profiles to be amazing. He's got multiple years of eligibility. This is someone that, as a true freshman, he averaged 9 points and 5 rebounds at San Diego State, but it's the efficiency as well. 50% from the field, 38% from the three-point line, and he's 7 feet tall. Oh, by the way, he averages over 2.5 blocks a game, so he's an elite rim protector. He also has an offensive game. I think he would be number one because he can fill multiple needs. You need a center, Magoon Gwath can be a center. You need a little bit of shooting, Magoon Gwath can shoot the ball. You need defense, well, guess what? Magoon Gwath was one of the best defenders in the conference. I do believe he won Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year, yes.
Yeah, Donovan Dent would be amazing. Unfortunately, I don't think Syracuse is going to be in on him. I think Quincy Ballard would be a pretty decent get, but it really just depends on the price because centers, especially the ones towards that middle tier, really depends on the price with them. And Trayson Eaglestaff, I think, would be amazing on the wing as a pure scorer.
Are you worried when you get into the 7-footers with the way Red plays defense that we end up in that same situation where we're too slow on the pick and roll?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a valid concern, but guys like Magoon Gwath, they can move. So if you're looking for a center that can move, I mean, he's the ideal target. He's just going to cost you at least $1 million, probably $1.5 million, maybe even $2 million in order to get him. So he would be ideal because you need a center that can move. He's someone that can move.
To your point, Paulie, they better be darn sure that he can defend the pick and roll because that was an issue this year. And yeah, he's got rim protection. If he can defend the pick and roll, sign me up because that was certainly an issue this year. You brought up Donovan Dent, Jackson. I'm seeing he's being linked to Duke. So my guess is I don't know if he's going to end up there, but I don't know that Donovan Dent is an option for Syracuse, unfortunately, because he would be a great piece to any roster. I do want to get back to the two guys coming back with JJ and Donnie, and I think we all agree that it was essential for Red and his staff that those guys come back. What kind of role do you see them both playing next year? For JJ, do you strictly see him at the 2? For Donnie, how much center do you see him dabbling in, or do you think he's strictly the 4 next year?
Well, the good part about them both is they do have positional versatility. So Starling can play the 1, but he's probably best as the 2. Donnie Freeman can play the 5, but he is probably best at the 4. The way I look at those two players is this, and I said it on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. You have your co-stars for next year. J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman, but you need your Batman. Who's the Batman on the team next year? Because as much as it was essential to keep them, you need to do a lot more around them. This team just won 14 games last year. Even if you get fully healthy J.J. Starling and hopefully an improved Donnie Freeman, that's still not enough, in my opinion, for this team to be a tournament team next year. So you need that ace-level guy that's probably better than Starling and Freeman, and then you need maybe one other stud to complement those guys, and then you need role players in the transfer portal.
I mean, you kind of answered my next question right there. I was going to ask you can Donnie Freeman be the best player on this team and for them to get to where they want to go? And again, take that for whatever you want. If they pick up 3 or 4 guys out of the portal that are very good players, but Donnie's the best, do you think they get where they want to go? Or, and I think you answered it right there. You're saying they need somebody who's better than those 2 guys.
They probably do.
At least one somebody.
At least one. They probably do. And if Donnie Freeman develops, right, he gets even better this offseason, puts on more weight, his outside shot gets better, all of a sudden he becomes a better defender. Well, look, if he's an All-American next year, which he was the number 6 recruit in the country in his class, well, then all bets are off. He can be the best player on a team that makes the tournament. And like I said, if he's an All-American, then that's beyond just being a tournament team. But if you assume that he stays at around the level, give or take, that he was at last season, you're probably going to need someone better than him.
I'm going to say I think you're going to struggle to find somebody better than him in the portal. 13-4, 7 rebounds. Hopefully he can defend next year. That was his problem last year, was he couldn't defend. I think 3-point shooting is probably the one thing this team needs more than anything coming into the season. What do you think?
I agree with you on 3-point shooting 100%, because the last couple of years they have not been a good 3-point shooting team. A few years ago, even when that team that won 20 games, what was their Achilles heel on offense? They couldn't shoot from the outside. And you look at 2025, who could shoot the ball? Chris Bell, and you just lost him in the transfer portal. And as much as it probably was a necessity to let him go and see where else he can flourish, maybe, the one thing you're going to have to replace with Chris Bell is his shooting, because he still is a pretty good shooter. 38% from the 3-point line is no small feat. And he was over 40%, I believe, in the ACC. You look at the guys who they've been connected to so far, aside from Amari and Dickerson, from Robert Morris, but they all have that same caliber from the 3-point line. Kobe McGee from Drexel, Jakari White from North Dakota State, Trayson Eaglestaff from North Dakota. Those are all guys that can shoot the basketball. So it seems like they agree with you that they're targeting some shooters.
Let's talk about the freshmen for a moment. We know that this class is highly touted. 2 guys in particular in this class are highly touted, in Sadiq White and Kyan Anthony. In a perfect world, and I know this is tough to answer now because we don't know the pieces that they're going to fill out the roster with, but in a perfect world, how much do those 2 guys in particular play next year?
I think in a perfect world, okay, well, the most perfect world ever is they're amazing right away, and they could be in the starting lineup, and it's the best class in the country, right? It can happen. I wouldn't bank on that. So ideally, they're guys that come off the bench and they just show a lot of potential. And after next season, you look at Kyan Anthony and Sadiq White and say, okay, we need to keep these guys because they're going to be our starters the following year. You think about it this way. Look, you got J.J. Starling as your 2. Kyan Anthony is a backup 2. You got Donnie Freeman, who's a 4. The backup to Donnie is Sadiq White. So if those guys can show a lot of potential in their true freshman season and have that ability to be like, you know what, maybe they can be starters the following year as true sophomores. Well, you don't even need to go in the portal the following offseason to replace J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman, assuming that Donnie moves on after next year because he's probably going to be an NBA prospect by then.
All right, so we touched on the fact they need a center, they need 3-point shooting, need a point guard, need a small forward. A lot of needs, obviously, going into the portal. If you had to rank it, Jackson, from, let's say 1 through 4, dynamic point guard, 3-point shooting, small forward, and a center, rank them for me, the order of importance.
Point guard. Point guard's 1. I would say 3-point shooting and guys on the wing are interchangeable, 2 and 3. You could kill 2 birds with 1 stone right there. And then center is very tricky because you want a center That's great. It certainly doesn't hurt to have one, but there are many different ways you can build a basketball team. You don't necessarily need a dominant big man in order to win. In fact, you can win substantially in the NCAA tournament with a player, without a player in your rotation above 6'9". Like that can be done. And the center market is ridiculously inflated. Okay. There was an article from On3 out there saying that the top centers in the transfer portal are going to go between $1.5 and $2 million. So my strategy has always been this: either pay the big bucks for a big time center out there, or don't really get one, because the middle of the road guys are probably going to cost you the same amount as what a top guard might go for in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
If centers are going for that much in today's game, that's bad news.
It's the most valuable position.
Well, and that's why I feel like they, in my opinion, I don't think they can go into the season with Donnie Freeman being their best option. Like that can't be a thing. Like they have to have a better option at the center position. Let him play his natural spot.
But I also think we saw last year that when your center's your probably second best player on your team, it's not the offensive player on your team, it's not a good recipe.
And that wasn't the design, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Eddie Lampkin was supposed to be their fourth best player on offense, and because of injury and because of Chris Bell and so on and so forth.
Steve, can I counter that, what you just said about Donnie Freeman at center? I agree with you, but at the same time, it goes back to my point about there's no one way to build an elite basketball team. I mean, look at Houston. Houston doesn't have a center in their rotation. Where's their center? Where's their dominant big man? I'm looking at their roster right now. There's nobody in the rotation that's above 6'9". Not one.
Correct. Right. Size-wise. But, I mean, Juwan Roberts he's a big dude. And I mean, Donnie's got height to him. I think you want to keep Donnie at his natural. I'm not saying you're wrong. I get the fact that you want to allocate your resources properly. I'm just saying that I think if they go into their season with that being their best option at center, I think that's a problem.
We actually saw it both ways at Syracuse. They had a very skilled center, and they had Malik Brown, where they were very undersized. And sadly, neither one of them have worked for Red.
Right. Well, right. And Brown didn't want to play center, and I'm not sure Donnie wants to play center. My guess is they told Donnie, in addition to the money, all right, this is the plan. The plan has to be that they're going to go out and get a center, in my opinion. But I hear what you're saying, Jackson. You don't want to overspend. That's important. But I also think you need somebody to man the middle that can rebound, block some shots. Even if he's not a 15-point-a-game scorer.
Rim protection is
rim protection. I do think is important. Yeah, I do think that's important. All right, Jackson, we're running out of time here. Anything else we didn't touch on that you want to get to?
I think you guys just about covered it. To be honest with you, a lot less feisty than the last segment, that's for sure.
Thank you for joining us.
All right,
of course,
thanks
anytime.
for coming on. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
Right, Jackson Holzer. Have Roberts on my mind. He's
because
coming.
We have so many Jacksons.
We have so many Jacksons on the show. Jackson coming up in the second hour to talk baseball. That was Jackson Holzer from the LockedOn Syracuse podcast. All right, let's take a time out here. 315-437-7644. We'll get to sound check coming up next. You're listening to Orange Nation on ESPN Radio.